measured and remeasured and double checked and checked where the neck was going to intersect the body and all kinds of good stuff. And I'm coming up with 2 1/4 inches at the very end of the neck. At the 17th fret, it's 2 3/16, which is exactly what the 335 is. So that's working out really well for me. And like I said, I've been checking and double checking to make sure that I've done all this right, because I hate to cut all this out and have it be wrong. Down at this end with the peg head, I took what is my standard JONAH peg head shape that I've used on several guitars, and I widened it out about 1/4 inch overall. I'm waiting for these machine heads to come in before I get too much done on this end of the world here. I'll go ahead and make this template, and so basically from the nut back to the end, I'll have that part of the template made and cut out, and then I can do the same thing with the neck blank really, and just leave the peg head end alone. I could still cut my taper in the peg head, and because it is a tip back, not a flat one. Take care of that as well. The machine should be here relatively quickly. The bridge, on the other hand, is a ways out. They gave me a range, and I sure hope it gets her on the early end of that, because it's going to be really pushing up tight against my deadline. Today's drink of choice is bubbly, sparkling water, strawberry flavored with other natural flavors. Yeah, so I think one of the other natural flavors in here might be dirt or something. It's kind of natural. Carbonated water with a bit of some kind of flavor that you can never really put your finger on or your tongue on or something. It's not. These are all the same, whether it's this or the Canada Dry or the LaCroix or whatever. They're all just something to drink that's not exactly water. Okay. Rabbit trail. That's it. I'm gonna go cut some stuff. I'll probably just leave the camera running here and there, and before I cut you completely loose, I will take another piece of material, probably 1/2 inch MDF, and I'll edge it in the joiner to make sure it's completely straight. And then what I'll do is I'll rough cut this in the bandsaw, and then I just 2-way tape that nice straight edge down to where I want this to cut, and then I'll route it off, and then I'll have a nice straight template. Let me say this real quick. I like having a top bearing bit, because all the cutting happens below the bearing. So I'm not going to stick my hand in here, but even if that were to somehow happen, if I had my hand across the top of this, all I'm going to get is this nut holding the bearing down. So. That's pretty. I got 2 uses out of that double stick tape. It stayed down there, so I just flipped it over and did it again. I like to keep this full depth while I'm gluing the fretboard on, because it's completely rigid, it's completely flat. Gluing the fretboard on actually creates a truss, because you've got another piece of wood glued in this direction. Just like gluing your laminations together creates a truss this way, and somewhat against twisting, or a lot against twisting. But so kind of once I this is what I would consider a big cut. When you're pulling that kind of material off the core of the you know, of the neck blank. Same thing here. This is big. So I like to watch and see if I have any movement in these pieces of material. Now, these pieces of material aren't the important ones because they're obviously not attached any longer. But I checked this right after the cut. Now it's been a couple days since I've been out here, and I know you can't see it, but it's perfectly dead flat, or maybe you can see it if I hold it up like that. But it's perfect. There's no roll off anywhere. And this edge I did clean up with the joiner. This edge hasn't been, so there's a little lumps and bumps in here, but it didn't move overall. So we're good. The other thing I can do here, since this is a bandsawn edge, I can't really look at that and see if anything's happened, but I can certainly parallel this veneer line here right down the middle and check and see. And I'm just dead on. Let me check the camera. Yeah, you can't really see in that camera that, but if I move over here a little bit, you might be able to. So, yeah, so you can see it's a dead on. Just another really quick little note. When I left this Wednesday night, it's now Saturday morning. When I left this Wednesday night, I never leave a blank laying with one, whether it's a top or a back or side pieces. I never leave anything that I've run through the sander or through the jointer. I always open up both edges, face and back, but I never leave it laying like this because that inhibits the way the moisture enters or leaves the wood. Okay, so I always just put it up on something that's flat. I'm not going to leave it just laying, you know, kind of cattywampus anywhere either. So, but that just allows airflow all the way around. So obviously both these sides are opened up, so they're drawing or letting out humidity either direction. Same thing here, top and bottom. So that really helps to keep your cuts stabilized. You can take something out of the sander, it's perfectly flat, and lay it down on your saw table or on a workbench somewhere, and you'll notice immediately that it starts to cup. And that's just because it's not getting air on both sides. Alrighty, truss rod routing on the GGBO 2021 base ES335 build here. So I've already kind of tentatively marked the ends where I want to stop. To get a 21-inch rod, I could not get the standard configuration that I've been using, that I've been getting from Bitterroot. But I got this also from Bitterroot, and I got it as it's a double acting. I believe they call this the double acting. The other one is called a two-way truss rod. So the other one has an enclosed nut here. It has a shroud around it. So you could glue that entire rod in and nothing's going to keep it from working. It's completely wrapped in the plastic, where this one only has the round section of the rod wrapped in plastic. On this end, I'm stopping it short of the adjuster. It's not like I have the adjuster at the end of the trench and that the wrench is going to come in under the nut and all the way up here. So this is my nut line, and I'm putting the end of the adjuster out actually past the nut line, but I'm going to route a channel looks like about 3/4 of an inch behind the nut line, and then I'll drill a hole through into the peg head area. This will then, you know, have to just kind of ramp into the slot and into that hole down there, which will eventually be exposed when I do the angle cut back on that and route in a channel there. I finally got smart and bought a 3/8 round bottom bit, and I use a round bottom bit in my channels because the bottom of the rod is round, and I've did them square for a long time, and it just dawned on me when it's like, if the bottom of the channel is round, why do I want a square bottom for my truss rod? It doesn't make sense. So I bought a 1/4 inch round bottom. So I have this I have this pointed V-bit in the router, and I have it turned. The router's not plugged in either, by the way. I have it turned so it's crossing the center line of the truss channel, and I have these screws you see here and here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Nope, that's not quite in the camera. You can see this one though. So there is adjustment back and forth, and it also clamps the neck solidly in place. Let me do that. I actually, I mentioned when I built this little device here, the sled, that I left this side long so that I could clamp it down. I can see my line here. You can't because the router's in the way, but you have to take my word for that. And I'm going to loosen the screw on that side, push it over a tad, get dead center on that. Okay, so that end is good, and I'm gonna push the neck that way. Looks really good. This is a really basic plunge router. You don't need anything terribly fancy. I just have the tip of the cutter touching the top of the neck blank. I have this little pivot thing here, so I push down at my highest setting. I have the rod locked in here, so it can't go any deeper than that from this point now. So I move this, it can go down 3/16 of an inch. I'll do about half of that cut. Then after I've gone up and down the trench, I'll bottom out on here. That'll be a full 3/16. And then I can rotate it one more time, and that puts me down to my 3/8 depth, or just slightly under my 3/8 depth. At that point, I can check my truss rod and see how things are looking. Okay, just got the chips cleared out on those extra passes. Didn't go any deeper in there. And I totally forgot about having some dust collection on there. Just buried my phone. All right, so let's see how. Now, one thing is that this style rod is different from the other rod, is that this nut is square on the bottom. So I will have to square this out and then take that section down square, right where that truss rod is at. Once I have this 1/4-inch hole drilled through here, this will push all up into the headstock, and I'll have access once I have this other hole routed, which I'm going to do here pretty quick. Okay, and it fits good. Sweet. Anyway, you can tell from the black veneer lines in here that I dropped that bit right dead center on that. Very, very good. I got just a fuzz of maple showing here. So, groovy.